3 German shepherds was found, shivering in a storm drain. What baby did next left everyone in tears. The rain hadn't stopped for 4 days. What 5-year-old Marcus did when he heard those desperate cries would leave an entire town sobbing and change hundreds of lives forever. Don't forget to like, share, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Marcus pressed his small nose against the cold window, his breath creating foggy circles on the glass. The duplex shook slightly as another gust of wind slammed against its thin walls. Outside, the streets of Millbrook had transformed into rushing rivers of muddy water. Cars sat abandoned, half submerged. The old oak tree in Mrs. Peterson's yard had fallen across the road 3 hours ago. "Get away from that window, Marcus," Henry called from the kitchen, his voice strained. The 65-year-old man limped toward his grandson, favoring his bad hip, the one that had forced him to retire from the fire department 2 years early. "Storm's getting worse." Marcus didn't move. His dark eyes remained fixed on something outside, something only he seemed to notice. 8 months. That's how long it had been since the accident. 8 months since his parents' car had skidded off that bridge. 8 months since Marcus had spoken more than a few words at a time. "Grandpa?" The word came out barely above a whisper. "Someone's crying." Henry paused, listening. All he heard was rain hammering the roof, wind screaming through the trees, and the emergency sirens wailing in the distance. "It's just the storm, buddy." Makes all kinds of sounds. "No." Marcus's hand pressed flat against the glass. "They need help." The old man's chest tightened. This was the most Marcus had said in weeks. Dr. Morrison had warned him. Trauma could manifest in different ways. Sometimes children heard things, saw things. Henry moved closer, his hip protesting with each step. "Marcus, there's nobody out there. Everyone's inside, staying safe." But the boy was already pulling on his yellow rain boots, the ones his mother had bought him last spring. They still had the price tag hanging from the left boot. She'd never gotten the chance to remove it. "They're scared, Grandpa." Really scared. Tears welled in Marcus's eyes, but they didn't fall. They never fell anymore. "Please." Henry's hands trembled as he reached for his grandson. "Son, we can't go out there. The mayor issued an evacuation warning. The flooding—" "Please!" Marcus's voice cracked, raw and desperate. It was the same voice he'd used that night at the hospital, begging the doctors to save his parents. The same voice that had gone silent when they'd told him they couldn't. Henry felt his resolve crumbling. His daughter Emma would have known what to do. She'd always known how to reach Marcus, how to understand him in ways Henry couldn't. But Emma was gone, and all Henry had left was this broken little boy who heard cries in the storm. 10 minutes, Henry heard himself saying. "We look for 10 minutes, then we come back. You stay right next to me, understand?" Marcus nodded frantically, already reaching for his blue raincoat. Henry grabbed his old firefighter jacket from the closet, the reflective strip still bright despite years of wear. His hands shook as he zipped it up. This was insane. The streets were flooding. The emergency services had told everyone to stay inside, but something in Marcus's eyes, a spark of life that had been missing for so long, made him keep moving. The moment they stepped outside, the storm attacked them. Rain hit like tiny hammers, cold and relentless. Wind tried to push them back through the door. Henry grabbed Marcus's hand, holding tight enough to leave marks. "Which way?" he shouted over the roar. Marcus pointed left, toward Riverside Avenue where the storm drains connected to the old creek system. Henry's stomach dropped. That area would be the worst hit. The creek always overflowed during heavy rains and with 4 days of downpour. They waded through knee-deep water, Henry's hips screaming with every step. Marcus pulled forward like a dog on a leash, urgent and determined. They passed the Chen's house dark and empty, evacuated yesterday. The Miller's fence had collapsed, their garden gnomes floating past like tiny corpses. "Marcus, we need to go back!" Henry yelled. But the boy wasn't listening. He'd stopped suddenly, his head tilted, rain streaming down his face. "There!" Marcus broke free from Henry's grip and ran toward the corner where Riverside met Main Street. Henry lurched after him, his bad hip nearly giving out as his foot caught on something underwater. A fallen branch, maybe, or debris from someone's yard. The storm drain was barely visible, a dark mouth in the concrete gulping down the floodwater. The metal grate that usually covered it had been torn away by the current's force. Water poured in from all directions, creating a whirlpool effect that made Henry's firefighter instincts scream danger. "Marcus, get back! Get back!" But the boy had dropped to his knees at the drain's edge, his small hands gripping the concrete lip. "Grandpa, look! Look!" Henry grabbed his grandson's jacket, ready to pull him to safety, then froze. From deep within the drain came a sound that cut through even the storm's fury. Desperate, high-pitched whimpering. Animal cries. Multiple animals. "Oh, God!" Henry breathed, dropping beside Marcus. He pulled out his phone. The screen immediately slicked with rain and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness of the drain, revealing a sight that made his heart stop. 3 German Shepherd puppies huddled on a narrow concrete ledge about 4 feet inside the drain. The water rushed past them, inches from their small bodies. They couldn't have been more than 8 weeks old, their fur matted and muddy, eyes wide with terror. The smallest one, a female with a white patch on her chest, lay on her side, too weak to stand. Her siblings pressed against her, trying to share what little warmth they had left. "We have to save them!" Marcus's voice broke through Henry's shock. "Marcus, Henry's mind raced. The drain opening was maybe 2 feet wide, too small for him to fit through. The water was rising fast. In minutes, it would reach the ledge. The puppies would drown. He fumbled with his phone, trying to dial 911. The call went through after 3 attempts. 911, what's your emergency? This is Henry Walker, retired firefighter, badge number 4421. I'm at the storm drain on Riverside in Maine. There are 3 puppies trapped. Sir, I'm sorry, but all units are responding to human emergencies only. We have multiple water rescues in progress. Animal control is suspended until... Henry hung up. He understood. People came first. Always. But looking at those terrified puppies, seeing the smallest one's chest barely rising and falling, Marcus was already shrugging off his raincoat. "What are you doing?" Henry grabbed his grandson's arm. "I can fit." Marcus's eyes met his grandfather's, and for the first time in 8 months, they were fully alive, burning with purpose. "I'm small enough?" "Absolutely not. Marcus, no. I can't let you—" "They'll die, Grandpa." Marcus's voice was steady, older than his 5 years. Just like Mom and Dad. "But we can save these ones. We can save them." The words hit Henry like a physical blow. He looked at the drain. The water was rising faster now, already lapping at the edge of the ledge. The puppies' cries were getting weaker. The smallest one had stopped moving entirely. "Mom would have saved them," Marcus whispered. "She always helped everyone, remember? She stopped for every stray cat, every hurt bird. She would have saved them." Henry's eyes burned. Emma had been like that, unable to pass by suffering without trying to help. It had driven him crazy sometimes, the way she'd bring home injured animals, volunteer at shelters, donate money they didn't have to animal rescues. But it had also been one of the things he'd loved most about his daughter. "The water's too strong," Henry said weakly, but he was already calculating. If he held Marcus's legs, if they used the rope from his emergency kit in the truck. "I know what they're feeling," Marcus said suddenly. "They're scared and cold and they want their mom. But she's not coming. She's never coming back." His small voice cracked. "Just like mine." Henry closed his eyes for a moment, rain mixing with the tears on his weathered face. When he opened them, Marcus was looking at him with such trust, such determination. "If we do this," Henry said slowly, "you follow my rules exactly. You understand? No arguing, no hesitating. If I say come back, you come back immediately." Marcus nodded solemnly. Henry limped back to his truck, returning with a length of rope from his old firefighting gear. His hands worked, automatically tying a harness around Marcus's small chest, the knots coming back to him like muscle memory. Double bowline, safety backup, check, and double check. "The water's cold," he warned, helping Marcus sit on the edge of the drain. "It's going to try to pull you. You hold on to the side, you move slow, and you don't let go of the wall, understand? Yes, Grandpa? If you can't reach them, if it's too dangerous, you come back. Promise me. I promise." But Henry could see it in the boy's eyes. Marcus would not come back without those puppies. This wasn't really about the dogs. This was about Marcus finally finding something he could save, something he could protect, after months of helplessness and loss. Henry lowered his grandson into the drain. The water hit Marcus like ice, stealing his breath. It was deeper than it looked, reaching his waist immediately. The current pulled at his legs, trying to sweep him away. He pressed his back against the concrete wall, fingers finding every crack, every rough spot to hold on to. "You okay?" Henry's voice echoed from above. Yes," Marcus gasped, teeth already chattering. He inched sideways along the wall, fighting the current with every step. The puppies were only 6 feet away, but it felt like miles. The rushing water roared in his ears, drowning out everything except the weakening whimpers ahead. The first puppy, the largest, a male with dark markings around his eyes, saw Marcus coming and tried to bark, but only managed a hoarse cry. As Marcus got closer, the puppy pressed back against the wall, terrified. "It's okay," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible over the water. "I'm not going to hurt you. I know you're scared. I'm scared too." He reached out slowly, his small hand trembling. The puppy snapped at him, teeth catching his finger. Marcus didn't pull back. Blood welled up from the small puncture, mixing with the muddy water. "It's okay," he said again. "I know it hurts to trust people. But I'm going to help you. I promise." Something in his voice, maybe the pain, maybe the understanding, made the puppy stop struggling. Marcus scooped him up with one arm, the puppy's body trembling violently against his chest. The middle puppy, another male with lighter fur, came willingly, too exhausted to fight. "Marcus, hurry!" Henry's voice was tight with fear. The water had risen another 2 inches, but the smallest puppy, the female with the white patch, wasn't moving at all. She lay at the very back of the ledge, her tiny body limp. "There's one more!" Marcus called up. She's not moving, Grandpa. Leave her! Marcus, you need to come back now." But Marcus was already moving deeper into the drain, the water now reaching his chest. The current was stronger here, where the drain narrowed. His foot slipped on the slimy concrete, and for a terrifying moment, he went under. Henry's scream echoed through the drain as Marcus's head disappeared beneath the muddy water. The rope went taut in his hands. He started to pull, then felt resistance. Marcus was fighting him, trying to go deeper instead of back. The boy's head broke the surface, gasping and coughing, but he didn't retreat. Still clutching the 2 puppies with one arm, he used the other to pull himself along the wall toward the motionless puppy. "No one gets left behind," Marcus said, the words coming out between chattering teeth. "No one gets left behind, Grandpa." Not again. Henry's heart shattered. Those had been Emma's words, the last things she'd said to Marcus before leaving for their anniversary dinner. "We'll be back soon, baby." No one gets left behind in this family, but they had been left behind. The storm had taken them, left them at the bottom of Miller's Creek, while Marcus waited at home with a babysitter, watching the clock, wondering why his parents were late. "Okay," Henry called down, his voice breaking. "Okay, son. Get her. But hurry. Please hurry." Marcus reached the smallest puppy just as the water began spilling over the ledge. She was so tiny in his hand, barely bigger than his palm. Cold. So cold. He tucked her inside his shirt, against his skin, and started the journey back. The return was harder. With 3 puppies clutched against his chest and only one hand free to hold the wall, every inch was a battle. The water pulled at him, trying to claim him and his small charges. His muscles, already weak from months of barely eating, barely sleeping, screamed in protest. "Almost there," Henry encouraged, leaning as far into the drain as he dared. Just a little more. Marcus's foot slipped again. This time, he couldn't catch himself. The current grabbed him, pulling him toward the deeper part of the drain, where the water disappeared into underground pipes. The rope snapped tight, Henry's old firefighter training the only thing keeping his grandson from being swept away. "Hold on! Hold on!" Marcus wrapped both arms around the puppies, unable to grab anything else. He could feel the smallest one against his chest, still motionless, still cold. The other 2 whimpered weakly, their small bodies shaking. A new voice cut through the chaos. "Grab my hand!" Sarah Chen appeared beside Henry, having heard the commotion from her house. The veterinary technician didn't hesitate. lowering herself partially into the drain despite the danger. Her fingers found Marcus's jacket, then his arm, pulling him toward the edge while Henry hauled on the rope. Together, they dragged Marcus and the puppies from the drain just as a massive surge of water came rushing through, filling it completely. If they'd been 30 seconds later... Marcus lay on the flooded street, still clutching the puppies, his whole body shaking violently. The two larger puppies were crying weakly, but alive. The smallest one... "She's not breathing," Marcus sobbed, his tears finally coming, mixing with the rain. "She's not breathing. I couldn't save her. I couldn't..." Sarah was already in action, her trained hands gently taking the smallest puppy from Marcus. "Henry, get them to my house. Now." Henry scooped up his grandson, who refused to let go of the other two puppies. Sarah ran ahead with the motionless puppy, her veterinary training taking over. They burst through her front door, water streaming everywhere. "On the couch," Sarah ordered, already performing compressions on the tiny puppy's chest. "Henry, there are towels in the bathroom. We need to get them warm. Hypothermia will kill them as fast as drowning." Marcus watched with wide, terrified eyes as Sarah worked on the smallest puppy. Her tiny pink tongue lolled out of her mouth. Her white patch was stained with mud. She looked so small, so fragile. "Please," Marcus whispered, "please don't leave." "Everyone leaves. Please don't leave me too." The two puppies in his arms whined softly, as if calling to their sister. Marcus held them closer, his small body still shaking from cold and exhaustion. "Come on, little one," Sarah muttered, alternating between compressions and gentle breaths into the puppy's tiny nostrils. "Come on." Henry returned with towels, immediately wrapping them around Marcus and the puppies. His grandson's lips were blue, his skin pale as paper, but his eyes never left the smallest puppy, watching Sarah work with an intensity that broke Henry's heart. "I should have been faster," Marcus whispered. "If I'd been faster." "You did amazing," Henry said firmly, pulling the boy closer. "You saved them, Marcus. You saved all three." "But she's not..." Sarah suddenly sat back, her hands still. The room fell silent except for the storm raging outside. The smallest puppy lay motionless on the towel, her tiny body limp. Marcus let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite a sob, something raw and primal that spoke of loss too great for a 5-year-old to bear. He reached for the puppy, and Sarah didn't stop him. He cradled her against his chest, rocking back and forth. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the tiny form. "I'm so sorry. I tried so hard. Just like with Mom and Dad, I tried to wait up, tried to stay awake so I could see them come home. But I fell asleep, and they never came home. And now you won't wake up either, and it's my fault. It's all my fault." The words poured out of him, 8 months of guilt and grief spilling over. Henry pulled him closer, his own tears flowing freely now. He'd had no idea Marcus blamed himself for his parents' death, for not being awake when the police came to the door. "Marcus," he started, but the boy wasn't listening. Marcus was bent over the smallest puppy, whispering something too quiet for the adults to hear. His tears fell onto her muddy fur. The two other puppies had crawled closer, their small bodies pressed against their sister, making soft, mournful sounds. And then, so faint they almost missed it, a tiny cough. Sarah gasped. "Wait, did she just..." Another cough, stronger this time. Water dribbled from the puppy's mouth. Her tiny chest rose, fell, rose again. "She's breathing!" Sarah exclaimed, immediately checking the puppy's vitals. "She's breathing on her own." Marcus looked up, his face a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. The smallest puppy's eyes fluttered open, brown and unfocused, but alive. Definitely alive. "You did it," Henry whispered, crushing Marcus against him. "You saved her, buddy. You saved all of them." Marcus broke down completely then, sobbing into his grandfather's chest while still cradling the smallest puppy. The other two puppies climbed into his lap, their small tongues licking his tears. Sarah worked around them, checking each puppy with practiced efficiency. "They're malnourished," she said quietly to Henry. "Severely. And the smallest has an injured leg. Looks like it's been that way for a while. These aren't strays from the storm. Someone dumped them here, probably hoping the flood would..." She didn't finish the sentence. "Who would do that?" Henry asked, horrified. Sarah's face was grim. You'd be surprised. Purebred German Shepherds like these? If they're not perfect, if they can't be sold for top dollar, some breeders just dispose of them. The smallest one's leg injury probably made her worthless in their eyes. Marcus heard every word. He looked down at the smallest puppy, who was now trying weakly to lift her head. You're not worthless, he told her firmly. You're not. And I'm going to call you Hope, because that's what you gave me. Hope. He looked at the other two puppies, his face serious despite the tears still tracking down his cheeks. This one is brave, he said, pointing to the middle puppy who had come to him willingly despite his fear. And this one is Guardian, he indicated the largest, who even now was trying to position himself protectively over his sisters. Sarah smiled softly. Those are perfect names. She continued her examination, her expression growing more concerned. They need immediate veterinary care. The clinic is flooded, but I can open the emergency supplies. The smallest, Hope, her leg needs surgery. Without it. We'll figure it out, Henry said immediately. Money was tight. It always had been. Even more so now that he was raising Marcus alone on his pension. But looking at his grandson's face, seeing life in those eyes for the first time in 8 months, he knew he'd sell everything he owned if necessary. They told me things, Marcus said suddenly, his voice small but certain. When I was in the water. They showed me pictures in my head. Henry and Sarah exchanged glances. What kind of pictures, sweetheart? Henry asked carefully. A mean man with rough hands. A dark room that smelled bad. Their mom crying when he took them away. She tried to fight him, but he hit her. Marcus's voice was matter of fact, but his arms tightened around the puppies. Hope got hurt when he threw them in a box. He said they were garbage, but they're not garbage. They're not. Sarah's hands had stilled during Marcus's recitation. She looked at Henry with alarm. The detail, the specificity. It was uncanny. Either Marcus had an incredibly vivid imagination, or... Marcus, she said gently, can you tell me anything else about the mean man? What he looked like? Marcus closed his eyes, his forehead creasing in concentration. He had a mark on his hand, like a picture, a snake eating itself. His eyes opened, and he smelled like cigarettes and something sweet, like the medicine Grandpa takes for his hip. Henry's blood ran cold. He knew that smell. Menthol cigarettes and analgesic cream. It was distinctive, specific, too specific for a 5-year-old to make up. Sarah was already pulling out her phone. I think we need to call the police. If someone did deliberately dump these puppies, if there's abuse involved... No! Marcus's voice was sharp with fear. He'll come back. He'll take them. He said he would. He told their mom he'd be back to get rid of them properly if the storm didn't do it. Marcus, how do you know he said that? Henry asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. Hope remembers. She heard him. She understands words better than her brothers. She's smart. Really smart. Marcus looked down at the smallest puppy, who was now gazing up at him with those brown eyes. She says thank you for not leaving her behind. The rational part of Henry's mind wanted to dismiss this as trauma response, as Marcus projecting his own feelings onto the puppies. But there was something about the way the smallest puppy looked at Marcus, the way her tiny tail attempted to wag despite her weakness, that made him wonder. Sarah finished her emergency treatment, wrapping Hope's injured leg carefully. They're stable for now, but they need fluids, antibiotics, proper nutrition. I'm going to call my colleague, see if we can get into the clinic despite the flooding. As she made the call, Henry watched Marcus with the puppies. The boy had positioned himself as their protector, his small body curled around all three. The puppies, despite their ordeal, seemed to trust him completely. Hope had managed to crawl onto his chest, her head tucked under his chin. Brave and Guardian flanked him, their eyes already beginning to close in exhausted sleep. They know they're safe now, Marcus murmured. They know we won't let anyone hurt them again. That's right, Henry said firmly. We won't. But even as he said it, a chill ran down his spine. If Marcus was right, if someone had deliberately tried to kill these puppies, would they come looking when they realized the storm hadn't finished the job? And more importantly, how did Marcus know things he couldn't possibly know? Sarah returned, her face grim. The clinic is accessible through the back entrance. Dr. Nathan is there now, dealing with emergency cases. He'll see the puppies." She paused. "Marcus, I need you to be very brave. We have to take the puppies to the doctor, and he might need to keep them overnight." "No." Marcus's arms tightened around the puppies. "They can't be alone. They're scared of being alone. Bad things happen when they're alone." "I'll stay with them," Sarah promised. "I won't leave them for a second." Marcus looked at her searchingly, then slowly nodded. "Hope says you have a good heart. She can tell. Animals always know." Sarah's eyes widened slightly, but she managed a smile. "Thank you, Hope. I'll take good care of you." As they prepared to leave for the clinic, Henry couldn't shake the feeling that rescuing these puppies was only the beginning. The storm still raged outside, but something had shifted in their small world. Marcus was talking, really talking, for the first time since the accident. He was connecting with these puppies in a way that seemed to go beyond normal childhood imagination. And somewhere out there, if Marcus was right, was a man who had tried to murder 3 innocent puppies and might not be happy to learn he'd failed. Henry looked at his grandson, carefully carrying Hope while Sarah held Brave and Guardian. The boy's face was set with determination, a look Henry recognized from his daughter, Emma's look when she'd decided something was right and nothing would stop her from seeing it through. "Grandpa," Marcus said quietly as they reached the door, "Mom and Dad would be proud of us, right?" "For saving them?" Henry's throat closed up. He managed to nod, pulling Marcus closer with his free arm. "They would be so proud, buddy. So very proud." As they stepped back into the storm, Henry made a silent promise to his daughter. He would protect Marcus and these puppies no matter what came next. The boy had finally found something to fight for, something to heal for. Henry wouldn't let anyone take that away. The rain continued to fall, but somehow it didn't feel quite as cold anymore. In the midst of nature's fury, they had found something worth saving. And maybe, Henry thought as he watched Marcus whisper reassurances to Hope, they had found something that would save them in return. The journey to the clinic was treacherous. Streets had become rivers, and twice Henry had to take detours when they encountered water too deep for his truck to navigate safely. Marcus sat in the back with the puppies, talking to them constantly in a low, soothing voice. Sarah rode beside him, monitoring their condition with practiced eyes. "The smallest one, Hope, her breathing is shallow," Sarah said quietly to Henry. "The hypothermia hit her hardest. And that leg. It's been broken for at least a week, maybe more. It's already started healing wrong." "Will she be okay?" Marcus asked, having heard despite Sarah's attempt at discretion. Sarah turned to him, her expression honest but gentle. "Dr. Nathan is the best veterinarian in 3 counties. If anyone can help her, he can. But she's going to need surgery, and even then, she'll make it," Marcus said with absolute certainty. "She has to." She fought too hard to give up now. The clinic's parking lot was flooded, but the back entrance Sarah had mentioned sat on slightly higher ground. Dr. Nathan met them at the door, a tall man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His scrubs were already stained from other emergencies he'd handled that day. "Sarah filled me in," he said, immediately taking Hope from Marcus's arms. The puppy whimpered weakly, and Marcus stepped forward. "Her name is Hope," he said. "She's scared of doctors because the bad man pretended to be nice at first." "Before he hurt them?" Dr. Nathan paused, studying the boy with interest. "And how do you know that, young man?" "She told me," Marcus said simply. "Not with words, but I can feel what she feels, see what she remembers. Most adults would have dismissed this, but doctor. Nathan had been a vet for 30 years. He'd seen the inexplicable bonds between humans and animals, witnessed communications that defied logical explanation. "What else does she tell you?" he asked, carrying Hope toward the examination room while the others followed. "She's scared, but trying to be brave. Her leg hurts all the time, but she doesn't cry about it anymore because crying made the mean man angrier." Marcus's voice was steady, matter of fact. "She loves her brothers and tried to protect them, even though she's the smallest. And she misses her mom, a lot." Dr. Nathan gently placed Hope on the examination table, his movements slow and deliberate. "Well, Hope," he said directly to the puppy, "I'm going to help you. I know you're scared, but I promise I'm one of the good ones." As he began his examination, his expression grew increasingly grave. The other two puppies were malnourished but relatively stable. Hope, however. "The leg needs immediate surgery," he said. "But she's very weak. The surgery itself could—" He glanced at Marcus, choosing his words carefully. "It's risky." "What if we don't do it?" Henry asked. "The bone is healing incorrectly. She'll be in constant pain. An infection is almost inevitable. Without surgery, she has maybe a few days, a week at most." Marcus stepped forward, his small hand reaching for Hope. She lifted her head weakly, her tail attempting a feeble wag. "She wants to try," he said. "She says she's not ready to give up. She wants to see what having a real family feels like." Dr. Nathan looked at Henry, who nodded. "Do it," the older man said. "Whatever it costs, do it." "I'll need to stabilize her first, doctor," Nathan explained. "Fluids, antibiotics, get her body temperature up. The surgery will have to wait until tomorrow morning. Tonight is critical." "I'm staying," Marcus announced. "Marcus, you can't—" Henry started. "I'm staying." The boy's voice held a firmness that belied his age. "She's scared of being alone. Bad things happen when they're alone. I promised I wouldn't leave her." Dr. Nathan and Henry exchanged glances. "There's a small room next to the surgical suite," the vet said finally. "You could stay there, but it won't be comfortable." "I don't care about comfortable," Marcus said. He looked at his grandfather. "Please, Grandpa. I have to stay. I have to." Henry saw Emma in his grandson's eyes. That same fierce protectiveness. That same inability to walk away from something that needed help. "I'll stay too," he said. Sarah volunteered to take Brave and Guardian to her home for the night, promising to bring them back first thing in the morning. As she prepared to leave with the two puppies, Marcus stopped her. "Tell them Hope will be okay," he said. "Tell them she's going to fight really hard to come back to them." Sarah nodded, blinking back tears at the earnestness in his voice. After she left Doctor, Nathan set up IV fluids for Hope and showed Marcus and Henry to the small room he'd mentioned. It held a worn couch and not much else, but it was clean and warm. "I'll check on her every hour, Doctor," Nathan promised. "The first night is crucial, if she makes it through." He didn't finish, but they all understood. Marcus curled up on the couch where he could see through the window into the room where Hope lay surrounded by medical equipment. The puppy looked impossibly small on the metal table, the IV tube nearly as thick as her tiny leg. "Tell me about the mean man," Henry said quietly, sitting beside his grandson. "What else do you know?" Marcus was quiet for so long, Henry thought he might have fallen asleep. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he began to speak. "His name starts with R, Robert, maybe, or Richard. Hope heard someone call him that. He has a place outside town, a barn that smells like motor oil and fear. There were other dogs there, older ones, fighting dogs." Marcus's voice caught. Hope's mom was supposed to be one, but she wouldn't fight. She was too gentle. So he used her for making puppies, to sell. Henry felt sick. Dog-fighting rings were not uncommon in rural areas, but to think of one operating so close to home. Hope and her brothers were supposed to be sold to bad people who would make them fight too. But Hope's leg got hurt when he was moving them, and suddenly they weren't worth money anymore. So Marcus stopped, a tear rolling down his cheek. He put them in a bag, threw them in his truck. Hope could hear her mom howling, trying to get to them. Then he drove to the storm drain and threw them in. He said the storm would take care of his problem. "How long ago?" Henry asked, his voice rough. 3 days. They've been there 3 days, Grandpa, waiting. Hope kept them together, kept them on that ledge even though her leg hurt so bad. She knew if they fell in the water, it would be over. So she held on. For 3 days. Henry pulled Marcus closer, his own eyes burning. 3 days. Those puppies had survived 3 days in that drain, in agony, in terror, holding on to life by the thinnest thread. "We found them," he said. Firmly, that's what matters. We found them. But what if he finds out? Marcus's voice was small again, frightened. What if he comes looking for them? It was a valid fear. If this man, this Robert or Richard, discovered the puppies had survived, would he try to reclaim them? Or worse, try to finish what the storm hadn't? "Then we'll protect them," Henry said. "The police will help. Dr. Nathan will help. We won't let anyone hurt them again." Marcus nodded, but Henry could see the worry in his eyes. The boy settled back against the couch, his gaze never leaving Hope's still form in the next room. Around midnight, Hope's monitors began beeping urgently. Dr. Nathan rushed in, Henry and Marcus right behind him. The puppy was seizing, her small body convulsing. "Hold him back, doctor," Nathan ordered Henry, working quickly to administer medication. But Marcus broke free, reaching for Hope. "No, don't touch, doctor." Nathan started, then stopped. The moment Marcus's hand made contact with Hope's head, the seizing slowed. The puppy's eyes, rolled back and unseeing, gradually focused. Her breathing, rapid and labored, began to steady. "That's impossible, doctor." Nathan breathed, staring at his monitors. "Her heart rate is stabilizing." "How?" "She was scared," Marcus said simply, his hand still on Hope's head. "She thought she was dying alone. But she's not alone. She'll never be alone again." Dr. Nathan looked at Henry, who could only shrug. He'd stopped trying to understand what was happening between his grandson and these puppies. Whatever it was real, and it was powerful. The rest of the night passed slowly. Marcus refused to leave Hope's side, and eventually Doctor. Nathan brought in a chair so the boy could sit beside her. He talked to her constantly, about everything and nothing. About his parents, about the games he used to play, about the books his mother used to read to him. "She loved this one story," he told Hope around 3 a.m., his voice hoarse from talking. "About a dog who traveled hundreds of miles to find his family. Mom said it showed that love doesn't know distance or time. Love just knows how to find its way home." Hope's tail twitched slightly, the first voluntary movement she'd made in hours. "You found your way to us," Marcus continued. "Through all that fear and pain, you held on until we found you. And now you're home. You're finally home." As dawn broke through the clinic windows, Doctor, Nathan checked Hope's vitals one more time. "She's stable enough for surgery," he announced, amazement clear in his voice. "I honestly didn't think, but she's strong enough. We can try." "She wants to live," Marcus said. "She wants to see what happens next. She wants to play with her brothers and sleep in a warm bed and learn what it feels like to be loved." Dr. Nathan prepared for surgery while Henry tried to convince Marcus to eat something from the vending machine. The boy refused everything except a few sips of water, his entire focus on Hope. "You need to be strong for her," Henry said. "She needs you healthy." Marcus finally accepted a granola bar, eating it mechanically while watching Doctor Nathan's preparations. Sarah arrived with Brave and Guardian just as Hope was being taken into surgery. The two puppies immediately began whimpering, sensing their sister's absence. Marcus gathered them into his arms, whispering reassurances. "She's going to be okay," he told them. "The doctor is fixing her legs so she can run and play with you. She's being so brave." The surgery took 3 hours, 3 of the longest hours of Henry's life. Watching his grandson hold those puppies, seeing the fear and hope warring in his young eyes. This was about more than dogs now. This was about Marcus learning to believe that sometimes, despite all evidence to the contrary, things could turn out okay. That not every story ended in loss. When Dr. Nathan finally emerged, exhausted but smiling, Marcus jumped to his feet. "The surgery was successful," the vet announced. "She'll need extensive recovery time, and there might be a slight limp, but she's going to be fine. She's going to live." Marcus burst into tears, not the quiet, suppressed tears of the past 8 months, but full, cathartic sobs. Henry held him as he cried, feeling his own tears falling. Brave and Guardian wiggled between them, licking every face they could reach. "Can I see her?" Marcus asked when he could speak again. "She's still sedated, but yes, doctor," Nathan said. "She'll wake up in about an hour." They gathered around Hope's recovery crate, where she lay small and still, her leg now properly cast and bandaged. The rise and fall of her chest was steady, strong. "You did it, baby girl," Marcus whispered. "You did it." As they waited for Hope to wake up, Henry noticed Doctor Nathan making several phone calls, his expression growing increasingly concerned. Finally, the vet approached them. "I've been making some inquiries based on what Marcus told us," he said quietly, "about the man who dumped them. There's a Robert Kelly who lives about 15 miles outside town. He's been suspected of involvement in dog fighting, but never charged. Has a record of animal cruelty from a few years back, but got off with a fine. Henry's blood ran cold. You think he's the one? The description matches. And one of my colleagues mentioned seeing German shepherds at his property a few weeks ago. Said Kelly was bragging about valuable puppies he was going to sell. We need to call the police, Sarah said immediately. I already have, Doctor, Nathan replied. Officer Diana Rodriguez is on her way. She handles animal cruelty cases for the county. But Henry, he paused, choosing his words carefully. If this is Kelly, he's dangerous. He's connected to some very bad people. And if he finds out the puppies survived, that someone has them. He didn't need to finish. Henry understood. They weren't just dealing with animal cruelty anymore. They were potentially dealing with organized crime, with people who wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone who threatened their operation. We're not giving them back, Marcus said firmly, having heard everything. No matter what. They're ours now. Hope and Brave and Guardian are family. Henry looked at his grandson, small, fierce, determined, and made a decision that would change everything. You're right, he said. They're family. And we protect family. But even as he said it, Henry couldn't shake the feeling that they had just entered something much bigger and more dangerous than any of them realized. The storm outside had passed, but another storm was coming, and this time, it wouldn't be nature they were fighting against. It would be human cruelty, greed, and violence. And the stakes wouldn't just be 3 puppies' lives. It would be everything. Hope's eyes fluttered open just as Officer Diana Rodriguez walked through the clinic door. The puppy's first action was to look for Marcus, her tail attempting a weak wag when she found him. Marcus had his face pressed against the crate, whispering promises only the puppy could hear. Officer Rodriguez was younger than Henry expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She took in the scene, the exhausted boy, the recovering puppy, the 2 other puppies pressed anxiously against Marcus's legs, and her expression softened. You must be the heroes who saved these pups, she said, pulling out a notebook. Dr. Nathan filled me in on the basics, but I need to hear everything, especially from you. She looked at Marcus. Dr. Nathan says you might have information about who did this. Marcus looked at his grandfather nervously. Henry nodded encouragement. His name is Robert, Marcus said quietly. Robert Kelly. He has a snake tattoo on his hand, the snake eating itself. He smells like those mint cigarettes and medicine cream. He has a barn where he keeps fighting dogs. Officer Rodriguez's pen stilled. How do you know this, sweetheart? Marcus looked at Hope, who was now trying to lift her head despite the sedation. She remembers. She shows me pictures in my head. I know it sounds crazy, but it doesn't sound crazy, Officer Rodriguez interrupted gently. I've worked with animals for 10 years. I've seen connections between traumatized animals and certain people that can't be explained by science. Tell me everything Hope showed you. For the next hour, Marcus recounted every detail. The barn with its red door and concrete floor, the sound of Kelly's boots clicking, the other dogs, scarred and aggressive, Hope's mother, a beautiful German shepherd named Luna, who refused to fight despite beatings, the breeding program Kelly ran on the side, selling puppies to other fighting rings. He was angry when Hope got hurt, Marcus said, his voice growing quieter. He grabbed all 3 puppies, shoved them in a feed sack. Hope could hear her mother screaming, throwing herself against the kennel bars. She actually bent the metal trying to get to them. Officer Rodriguez's face had grown progressively darker during the recitation. Marcus, this is very important. Did Hope show you anything else about the property, other people, license plates, anything? Marcus closed his eyes, concentrating. There's another man. Younger. He called Kelly Uncle Rob. He has mean eyes and likes hurting the dogs even more than Kelly does. His name is Tyler? No, Taylor. Taylor Kelly. The nephew, Rodriguez muttered, writing rapidly. We've suspected him for months, but could never prove anything. She looked up. Marcus, what you're telling me could break open a case we've been building for 2 years. But I need you to understand something. These are dangerous people. If they find out you have their dogs. They're not their dogs, Marcus said fiercely. They threw them away to die. Hope and her brothers are ours now. Rodriguez smiled slightly. Legally, you're right. Abandoned animals become property of whoever rescues them after 72 hours. But these men don't care about legal. They care about reputation, about control. And if word gets out that their dumped puppies survived and someone's talking to the police. Henry felt his chest tighten. Are you saying we're in danger? I'm saying you need to be careful. Very careful. Rodriguez stood. I'm going to coordinate with state police. With what Marcus has told us, we might have enough for a warrant. But until we move on Kelly, you need to keep a low profile. No social media posts about the puppies. No talking to anyone about this. Can you do that? They all nodded. Rodriguez handed Henry her card. Call me immediately if you see anything suspicious. Anything at all. After she left, the clinic felt too quiet. Hope was more alert now, her brown eyes tracking Marcus's every movement. Brave and Guardian had settled beside her crate, maintaining a vigilant watch over their sister. We should go home, Henry said, exhaustion hitting him like a wave. Hope needs to rest, and so do we. She comes with us, Marcus said immediately. Dr. Nathan looked uncertain. She really should stay for observation. Please, Marcus interrupted. She's scared of being alone in strange places. I promise I'll watch her every second. I won't sleep. I'll make sure she's okay. The vet studied the boy's determined face, then looked at Hope, who was whimpering softly despite the pain medication. All right, but you call me immediately if anything changes. Any sign of distress, difficulty breathing, excessive bleeding from the surgical site, anything. They loaded all 3 puppies carefully into Henry's truck. Hope lay across Marcus's lap, her cast awkward but clean. Brave and Guardian pressed against their sister from either side, as if trying to share their warmth and strength. The drive home was quiet until Marcus suddenly spoke. Grandpa, I need to tell you something. Henry glanced in the rearview mirror, at his grandson's serious face. What is it, buddy? Hope says her mom is still alive. Still in that barn, still being hurt. Marcus's voice cracked. We saved Hope and her brothers, but what about Luna? What about all the other dogs? Henry's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd been so focused on the immediate crisis, on Marcus and the puppies, that he hadn't thought about the bigger picture. If Kelly really was running a fighting ring, there could be dozens of dogs suffering. Officer Rodriguez will help them, he said, trying to sound confident. Once they arrest Kelly. But what if he hurts them first? What if he knows the police are coming and he... Marcus couldn't finish the sentence, but Henry understood. If Kelly suspected he was about to be raided, he might destroy evidence, and the dogs were evidence. They arrived home to find Sarah waiting on their porch with supplies, puppy food, medications, blankets, and a special orthopedic bed for Hope. I thought you might need these, she said, helping them carry everything inside. How's our brave girl doing? She's fighting, Marcus said, carefully carrying Hope to the living room. Just like she always does. They set up a recovery area in the corner, the orthopedic bed surrounded by soft blankets. Hope settled with a small sigh, her brothers immediately curling up beside her. Marcus sat on the floor next to them, his hand resting gently on Hope's head. I'm going to make some calls, Sarah said quietly to Henry. I know some people in animal rescue. If there's going to be a raid, they'll need somewhere to put the seized dogs. We should be prepared. Henry nodded gratefully. As Sarah made her calls and Marcus tended to the puppies, Henry found himself staring out the window at the street. The floodwaters had receded, leaving behind mud and debris, but the real damage was invisible. The trauma, the fear, the knowledge that evil existed so close to home. His phone rang, startling him. Unknown number. Hello? Breathing. Heavy, deliberate breathing. Who is this? You have something that belongs to me. The voice was rough, angry. 3 somethings, actually. Henry's blood turned to ice. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Let me make this real simple, old man. Those puppies you pulled from the drain, they're mine. Bought and paid for. I want them back. They were abandoned, left to die. Henry kept his voice steady despite his racing heart. They're not yours anymore. Is that so? The voice turned mocking. Funny thing about abandoned property. Someone's got to prove it was abandoned. And I've got a bill of sale says those are purebred German shepherds worth $3,000 each. You really want to be charged with theft? An old man raising a kid alone? Be a shame if social services had to get involved. The threat was clear. Henry glanced at Marcus, still focused on the puppies, oblivious to the danger closing in. "What do you want?" "Simple. Bring the puppies to the old Mitchell barn on Route 47 tonight. Midnight? Come alone. We'll call it even. No cops, no problems. Everyone goes home happy. And if I don't?" A low chuckle. "You ever seen what happens to a dog that won't fight, old man? It ain't pretty. Would be a real shame if something like that happened to a person. Or a kid." The line went dead. Henry stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear. His mind raced through options, none of them good. Call Officer Rodriguez? But what if Kelly had someone watching the house? What if making that call triggered something worse? "Grandpa?" Marcus had noticed his distress. "What's wrong?" Henry forced a smile. "Nothing, buddy. Just a wrong number." But Marcus's eyes, those eyes that saw too much, didn't believe him. The boy stood, walking over to his grandfather. Was it him? The bad man? Henry wanted to lie, wanted to protect Marcus from this fear. But the boy had already lost parents who'd tried to protect him by keeping him in the dark. He deserved truth. "Yes," Henry admitted. "He wants the puppies back. Tonight." Marcus's face went pale, but his jaw set in that familiar stubborn line. "No! Marcus! No!" The boy's shout made all three puppies flinch. "They're not things. They're not property. They're living beings who were tortured and thrown away, and we're not giving them back. He threatened us, Marcus. Threatened you. I don't care." Tears were streaming down Marcus's face now, but his voice remained strong. "Mom and Dad died, trying to save people in that flood. They died being heroes. I couldn't save them, but I can save Hope and Brave and Guardian. I won't let them go back to that monster. I won't." Sarah, who had heard the shouting, came running in. Henry quickly explained the phone call. Her face went white, then red with anger. "That bastard," she breathed, then caught herself, glancing at Marcus. "Sorry, but he's not getting these puppies, not over my dead body." "That might be what it takes," Henry said grimly. Sarah pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Diana Rodriguez. This is witness intimidation, threats, attempted extortion." A rock crashed through the living room window. Hope yelped in terror, trying to stand despite her cast. Brave and Guardian immediately positioned themselves in front of her, small bodies trembling, but standing firm. Marcus threw himself over all three puppies as Henry rushed to the window. A dark pickup truck was speeding away, mud spraying from its tires. But the message was clear. They were being watched. Sarah was already dialing 911 while Henry checked the rock. There was a note rubber-banded to it, written in blocky letters, "Midnight, or next time, it won't be a rock." Officer Rodriguez arrived within 15 minutes, followed by 2 state police cars. The house became a crime scene, photographers documenting the broken window, the rock, the note. Marcus refused to leave the puppy's side, even when officers tried to question him separately. "This escalates everything," Rodriguez said grimly. "We're moving up our timeline. The raid happens tonight, before midnight. But Henry, I need you and Marcus somewhere safe. These people are more dangerous than we thought." "We're not leaving the puppies," Marcus said firmly. "You won't have to," Rodriguez promised. "We're going to move all of you. There's a safe house about an hour away. State police will escort you." As they prepared to leave, packing essentials and carefully moving the injured Hope, Henry noticed Marcus whispering to the puppies. He moved closer, catching fragments. "Be brave. Just a little longer. Your mom. Save her too. Promise." "Marcus?" Henry touched his grandson's shoulder. "What are you promising them?" Marcus looked up, his young face old beyond its years. "I told them we'd save their mom too, and all the other dogs. We can't just save 3 and leave the rest to suffer, Grandpa. That's not what heroes do." Henry's heart ached. His 5-year-old grandson understood heroism better than most adults. But heroism came with a cost, one Henry wasn't sure he was willing to let Marcus pay. The safe house turned out to be a cabin in the woods, belonging to a retired police officer who helped with witness protection. It was simple but secure, with reinforced doors and windows. State troopers were positioned outside, their presence both comforting and terrifying in its necessity. As night fell, Marcus grew increasingly agitated. He kept checking on Hope, who was recovering well but still weak. The puppy seemed to sense his distress, licking his hand whenever he came near. "Something's wrong," Marcus said suddenly around 10 p.m. "Hope feels it. Her mom is in trouble. Really bad trouble." Henry and Sarah exchanged glances. "Marcus, Hope is here, safe. She can't know what's happening miles away." "But she does," Marcus insisted. "She's showing me." Kelly is angry, really angry. He's drinking and he's got a gun and he's going to the barn. He's going to kill them all. He's going to kill Luna and all the dogs because he knows the police are coming. Officer Rodriguez, who had been coordinating the raid by phone, overheard. How could he know? "We've been careful." Her phone rang. She answered, her face going pale. "There's been a leak. Someone in the department warned Kelly. Teams are moving in now, but..." "It'll be too late," Marcus said desperately. "He's already there. He's already started." Hope can hear her mom screaming. It should have been impossible. A puppy couldn't psychically connect with its mother miles away. But Marcus's certainty, the tears streaming down his face, the way Hope was now whimpering and pawing at her, cast as if trying to run. "We have to do something," Sarah said. "If he's right..." "The teams are 20 minutes out," Rodriguez said, frustration clear in her voice. "Even with lights and sirens." Marcus stood up suddenly. "I have to go." "Absolutely not," Henry said immediately. "Marcus, you're 5 years old. You're not going anywhere near that barn." "But I can stop him?" "How? How could you possibly stop a grown man with a gun?" Marcus looked at Hope, then back at his grandfather. "Because I understand them. The dogs, they'll listen to me. And if all the dogs turn on him at once..." It was insane. It was dangerous. It was absolutely out of the question. But Hope was now howling, a sound none of them had heard her make before, a sound of pure anguish. And somehow, impossibly, from outside the cabin came answering howls. The police dogs in the trooper vehicles were responding, their voices creating an eerie chorus in the night. "Something's happening," one of the troopers reported, sticking his head in the door. "All the K9 units are going crazy. They're trying to break out of their vehicles." Rodriguez looked at Marcus with something like awe. "You're doing this? You're connecting with them?" "Not me," Marcus said. "Hope. She's calling for help. She's telling every dog who can hear that her mom is in danger." He looked at Henry desperately. "Grandpa, please." "I couldn't save Mom and Dad, but I can save Luna. I know I can." Henry felt his world tilting. Everything logical said to keep Marcus here, safe, protected. But looking at his grandson's face, seeing that desperate need to save rather than be saved. "If we do this," he said slowly, hardly believing the words coming from his mouth, "we do it my way. You stay in the vehicle. You don't go near Kelly. You don't take any risks." "Henry, you can't be serious," Sarah protested. "Look at her," Henry pointed to Hope, who was now standing despite her injury, her eyes fixed on the door, every muscle trembling with the need to run. "Look at all of them." Brave and Guardian had joined their sister, all 3 puppies oriented toward the door, like compass needles pointing north. And outside, the howling had intensified. Not just the police dogs now. Every dog within hearing distance had joined the chorus. Rodriguez made a decision that would later cost her a suspension, but save dozens of lives. "Get in my car. We're 15 minutes from Kelly's if I floor it. The backup teams can meet us there." The ride was surreal. Marcus sat in the back, Hope cradled in his arms despite regulations, whispering constantly to her. The puppy's eyes never closed, staring ahead as if she could see through the darkness to where her mother waited. Brave and Guardian pressed against them, adding their small voices to their sister's periodic howls. "Tell me what you see," Rodriguez said, glancing at Marcus in the mirror. "What's Hope showing you?" Marcus's eyes were closed, his face twisted in concentration. "The barn. Red door, just like I said. Kelly's inside. He's already shot 2 dogs, the ones that were too old to fight anymore. Luna is in the back kennel. She's trying to break free. She knows her babies are alive. She can feel Hope. How many other dogs?" 14. No, 15. Most are in cages. 3 are loose, his personal fighters. They're scared of the gun, but they're trained to obey him. Marcus's voice dropped. "He's walking toward Luna now. He's saying things, terrible things, about how she should have fought, should have earned her keep. Rodriguez pushed the accelerator harder, the speedometer climbing past 90. Henry gripped the door handle, his other hand reaching back to steady Marcus. 2 minutes out, Rodriguez reported into her radio. Suspect is armed and actively destroying evidence. We need immediate backup. Rodriguez, wait for the team, came the response. Do not approach alone. She turned off the radio. They screeched into Kelly's property, the headlights illuminating the barn with its infamous red door. Rodriguez grabbed Henry's arm before he could exit. You keep Marcus in this car no matter what. Understood? But Marcus was already moving, hope in his arms. The moment his feet hit the ground, something extraordinary happened. Every dog in the barn began barking at once. Not aggressive barking, but calling to Hope, who answered with a voice stronger than should have been possible from such a small, injured puppy. The barn door crashed open. Kelly stood there, gun in hand, blood splattered on his shirt. His eyes were wild, drunk, dangerous. Who the hell? He saw the police car, saw Rodriguez with her weapon drawn, saw Marcus holding Hope, his face contorted with rage. You took my property. You ruined everything. He raised the gun. 3 things happened simultaneously. Rodriguez shouted, "Drop the weapon!" Henry threw himself in front of Marcus. And Hope howled. It wasn't a puppy's howl. It was something primal, something that reached into the DNA of every dog within hearing and activated an ancient pack instinct. The 3 fighting dogs that had been cowering behind Kelly suddenly turned, not to attack, but to defend. To defend the puppy they recognized as pack, as family, as innocent. Kelly spun, confused, as his own dog circled him, growling. From inside the barn came crashing sounds, dogs throwing themselves against kennels with renewed desperation. "Call them off!" Kelly shouted, waving the gun wildly. "I can't," Marcus said, stepping out from behind his grandfather. "They don't belong to you anymore. They never did. Dogs aren't property. They're family." A massive German shepherd burst through the barn's side window in an explosion of glass and splintered wood. Luna. She was thin, scarred, one eye clouded from an old injury. But she moved with singular purpose, racing past Kelly, past the circling dogs, past Rodriguez and Henry, straight to Marcus and Hope. The reunion broke everyone who witnessed it. Luna sniffed Hope frantically, whimpering and crying, licking her puppy's face while Hope's tail wagged so hard her whole body shook despite the cast. Brave and Guardian, who Sarah had quickly brought. From the car, joined them, and Luna gathered all 3 puppies against her, as if trying to absorb them back into her body. Kelly used the distraction to run. He made it 3 steps before Rodriguez's taser dropped him. He convulsed on the muddy ground, the gun falling from his hand. The fighting dogs immediately backed away, tails tucked, confused without their master's commands. "Don't hurt them," Marcus called out as more police cars arrived. "They're victims too. They were made mean. They can be made kind again." The next hours were chaos. Animal control arrived with trucks to transport the rescued dogs. Each one had to be carefully removed from kennels, many requiring sedation. The conditions in the barn were worse than anyone had imagined. Dogs with untreated wounds, infections, some barely alive. Marcus insisted on being present for each rescue, Hope still in his arms. Luna pressed against his side. He talked to each dog, explaining that they were safe now, that the bad times were over. Whether they understood his words or just responded to his tone, every single dog calmed in his presence. 14 dogs saved, Officer Rodriguez told Henry as dawn broke over the horrible scene. Plus 3 puppies who started it all. Your grandson is a hero. He's 5 years old, Henry said weakly, exhaustion making him sway on his feet. He should be worried about kindergarten, not taking down dog-fighting rings. Rodriguez smiled slightly. Some people are born with gifts. Marcus has a gift with animals that I've never seen before. That connection with Hope, that saved lives tonight. They found Taylor Kelly, the nephew, trying to flee the state. He was arrested at a gas station, his truck full of evidence, fighting equipment, training tools, and detailed records of the entire operation. The records revealed a network spanning 3 states, dozens of breeders and fighters, hundreds of dogs. "This is huge," Rodriguez told them later at the vet clinic, where all the rescued dogs were being treated. "We're talking federal charges, RICO violations, the works. The Kellys are going away for a long time. Marcus was sitting on the floor of the clinic, surrounded by puppies. Luna lay beside him, her head in his lap, while Hope, Brave, and Guardian played gently around them. The reunion had revealed something amazing. Luna had milk. Despite weeks of abuse and starvation, her body had held onto the ability to nurse, waiting for puppies she'd thought were dead. She never gave up hope, Marcus said, watching Luna carefully clean Hope's cast. Even when everything was terrible, she kept believing she'd see them again. Dr. Nathan, who had come in early to help with the rescued dogs, knelt beside them. Marcus, what you did tonight, it was incredible, but also incredibly dangerous. I know, Marcus said quietly, but sometimes you have to do dangerous things to save others. That's what my parents did. They died in that flood trying to rescue the Johnson family from their car. Henry's throat closed. He'd never told Marcus the details of his parents' death, but somehow the boy knew. They were heroes, Marcus continued, gently stroking Luna's scarred head. And they taught me that being scared isn't an excuse to not help. Hope taught me that too. She was terrified in that drain, but she held on. She protected her brothers. She survived because she knew someone would come. And you came, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. We all did, Marcus corrected. Grandpa, even though his hip hurt. Sarah, even though it was dangerous. Dr. Nathan, even though the clinic was flooded. Officer Rodriguez, even though she could lose her job. That's what makes us human. We help, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The story could have ended there, with the bad guys arrested and the dogs saved. But real life is messier than fairy tales. Luna and the puppies came home with Henry and Marcus, of course. There was never any question about that. But Luna had problems. Deep psychological scars that manifested in different ways. She couldn't sleep unless she could see all 3 puppies. She hoarded food, hiding it around the house. She flinched at sudden movements and cowered when Henry raised his voice, even in laughter. She needs time, Marcus explained to his grandfather. Time and patience and love, just like I did after Mom and Dad died. The parallel wasn't lost on Henry. Both Marcus and Luna had lost everything, had survived trauma that should have broken them, and both were slowly, carefully learning to trust again. The other rescued dogs were placed in a temporary shelter Sarah helped establish. Marcus visited every day after school, working with each dog, helping them remember or learn for the first time that humans could be kind. Some responded quickly, tails wagging within days. Others took weeks to stop cowering in the corners of their kennels. The most damage was a scarred pit bull named Diesel, one of Kelly's champions. He'd won dozens of fights, killed other dogs, been rewarded with violence disguised as praise. The shelter workers were afraid of him. Animal control recommended euthanasia. No, Marcus said firmly when he heard, he deserves a chance. Marcus, honey, Sarah tried to explain gently. Some dogs are too damaged. Diesel has been conditioned to kill. He's dangerous. So was Luna, according to Kelly. So were Hope and her brothers. Future fighters, he called them. But look at them now. He had a point. Hope, despite her cast, was the gentlest puppy anyone had ever seen. She'd taken to visiting the children's hospital with Marcus, bringing joy to sick kids. Brave had become Marcus's shadow, protective but never aggressive. Guardian true to his name, watched over the whole family with quiet devotion. Let me try, Marcus begged. Just let me try. The first meeting with Diesel was terrifying. The dog was massive, easily 80 pounds of solid muscle. His face was a map of old wounds. His eyes were flat, dead, watching Marcus with an intensity that made every adult in the room tense. Marcus sat on the floor outside Diesel's kennel, Hope beside him. He didn't try to approach, didn't make eye contact. He just sat and talked. I know you're tired, he said softly. Tired of fighting, tired of hurting, tired of being hurt. You don't have to do that anymore. You can just be a dog now. You can play and sleep in the sun and have treats and belly rubs. But first, you have to choose to stop fighting, not them, he gestured to the worried adults, but yourself. You have to forgive yourself for what they made you do. Diesel's ears, cropped short by cruel hands, twitched slightly. Marcus continued visiting every day. On day 3, Diesel took a treat from his hand through the kennel bars. On day 7, Diesel's tail, what was left of it, wagged once. On day 10, Marcus opened the kennel door. "Marcus, no!" Sarah lunged forward, but Marcus held up his hand. "Trust me," he said, "and trust him." Diesel stepped out slowly, muscles tense, ready for violence that didn't come. Marcus didn't move, didn't reach for him. Hope, brave little Hope with her healing leg, walked forward and licked Diesel's scarred muzzle. The transformation was instant and heartbreaking. Diesel collapsed to the ground, rolling onto his back in submission, whimpering like the puppy he'd never been allowed to be. Marcus gently rubbed his belly, while the massive dog cried. "See?" Marcus said to the stunned adults. He just needed someone to tell him the war was over. Word of Marcus's gift spread. People started bringing him aggressive dogs, traumatized dogs, dogs deemed hopeless. The little house became a halfway home for healing. Henry, despite his grumbling about the food bills and the noise, built kennels in the backyard. Sarah officially partnered with them to create a rescue organization. They called it Hope's Haven. 6 months after the terrible night in the storm drain, they held their first adoption event. 15 of the dogs rescued from Kelly's operation were ready for homes. The event was held at the park where everything had started, now repaired from the flood damage. The turnout was extraordinary. Hundreds of people came, some to adopt, others just to meet the boy who could talk to dogs. Local news covered it, then national news. The story of Marcus and Hope, the boy and puppy who'd saved each other and then saved dozens more, captured hearts across the country. But the best moment came when the Johnson family arrived. Henry recognized them immediately. The family Marcus's parents had died trying to save. They'd been trapped in their car during the flood, water rising, when Emma and her husband had stopped to help. They'd managed to get the whole family out moments before the bridge collapsed, taking Emma and David with it. Mrs. Johnson knelt in front of Marcus, tears streaming down her face. "You look just like your mother," she said softly. She had the same kind eyes. Marcus nodded, his own eyes wet. "She would have saved the puppies, too." "Yes," Mrs. Johnson agreed. "She would have. She saved us, you know, all of us. Our 3 children are alive because of your parents." Her youngest daughter, maybe 7 years old, stepped forward shyly. "We want to adopt a dog," she said, "to remember them, to be brave like them." Marcus smiled, the first truly joyful smile Henry had seen since before the accident. "I know the perfect dog." He led them to Diesel, who was lying calmly beside a group of children, letting them paint his nails with non-toxic polish. The former fighter looked up at Marcus's approach, tail wagging. "This is Diesel," Marcus said. He was scared and angry and hurt. But he learned to be brave in a different way. He learned to be gentle. He learned to love. He needs a family who understands that being strong doesn't mean being mean. The Johnsons' youngest daughter sat down beside Diesel, who immediately rolled over for belly rubs. Mr. Johnson looked concerned, knowing the dog's history, but his wife touched his arm. "If Marcus says he's ready, he's ready. This family has given us everything. We can give this dog a home." As they filled out the adoption papers, Mrs. Johnson pulled Henry aside. "We tried to find you after the funeral," she said quietly. "We wanted to help, to do something. But you disappeared." "We needed time," Henry admitted. He stopped talking, stopped eating. I didn't know what to do. And now? Henry looked at his grandson, surrounded by dogs and people, teaching a group of children how to properly approach a nervous rescue. Now he's found his purpose. His parents saved people. Marcus saved souls, both animal and human. The adoption event was a complete success. Every dog found a home, even the ones with special needs. Hope's story had opened hearts and wallets. Donations poured in for Hope's Haven, enough to build a proper facility, hire staff, create programs for troubled youth to work with rescued dogs. Marcus insisted on one condition for the expansion. Luna and her puppies would always have a home with them, no matter what. "They're not rescues anymore," he explained. "They're family." Hope had healed completely, though she walked with a slight limp that somehow made her even more endearing. She became a certified therapy dog, visiting hospitals and nursing homes with Marcus. Her favorite stop was the children's cancer ward, where she would carefully climb into bed with sick children, her warm weight a comfort no medicine could provide. Brave grew into his name, becoming a search and rescue dog with the fire department. Henry cried the day Brave found his first lost child, a 3-year-old who'd wandered into the woods. The dog's gentle nature made him perfect for scared children, and his determination, inherited from his sister, meant he never gave up a search. Guardian lived up to his name as well, becoming Marcus's constant protector and companion. He seemed to sense Marcus's emotions before Marcus himself did, providing comfort during nightmares about his parents, celebrating the small victories of each rescued dog. Luna, perhaps, had the most remarkable transformation. From a broken, terrified breeding dog, she became the matriarch of Hope's Haven. New rescues were brought to her first. She would sniff them, often lick their faces, and somehow communicate that this was a safe place. Dogs that bit at humans would submit to Luna, following her lead in learning to trust again. 1 year after the rescue, Robert Kelly was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His nephew Taylor got 20. Prosecutors had found videos on his phone of him torturing dogs, evidence that sealed his fate. The network they had exposed led to dozens more arrests across multiple states. Officer Rodriguez, who had received a commendation instead of the expected suspension, brought Marcus the news personally. "You did this," she told him. "Your bravery that night started something that saved hundreds of dogs." Marcus shook his head. "Hope did it? She survived long enough for us to find her. She held on when everything told her to let go. She believed someone would come. And you came." "We all did," Marcus corrected, the same thing he'd said that night at the clinic. "That's what people do. We show up for each other." Rodriguez smiled. "You know, the police department is starting a K9 unit. We could use someone with your skills as a consultant. Interested?" Marcus's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Really. You'd help train handlers to better understand their dogs, to see them as partners, not tools." It was perfect. Marcus began spending weekends at the police academy, teaching grown officers what he'd learned in his short life. That dogs weren't just animals, they were beings with souls, fears, hopes, and endless capacity for love. The program was so successful that other departments began requesting Marcus's help. By the time he was 7, he was traveling to conferences, always with Hope at his side, teaching law enforcement agencies nationwide about the human-animal bond. But the work that mattered most to him happened at home, at Hope's Haven. There was the boxer who'd been set on fire by teenagers, who learned to trust again through Marcus's patient attention. The beagle used in laboratory experiments who had never seen sunlight before being rescued. The elderly golden retriever, abandoned at 14 years old when his family moved, who spent his final months surrounded by love, dying peacefully with Marcus holding his paw. Each rescue changed Marcus, and he changed them in return. Henry watched his grandson grow from a traumatized, silent 5-year-old into a confident, compassionate young boy who understood that the world could be cruel but chose kindness anyway. "Your parents would be so proud," Henry told him one evening as they sat on the porch, surrounded by sleeping dogs. Luna was stretched out between them, her head on Marcus's lap. Hope curled against her mother's belly. "So incredibly proud." Marcus smiled, looking up at the stars. "I think they know. Sometimes, when I'm working with a really scared dog, I feel them. Like they're helping me find the right words, the right approach." "Maybe they are." "Grandpa?" Marcus's voice turned serious. "Do you think I'll always be able to understand animals like this?" Henry considered the question. "I don't know, buddy. But I don't think it matters. What matters is that you used your gift when you had it. You didn't waste it. You didn't hide it. You used it to make the world better. Like Mom and Dad did. Exactly like Mom and Dad did." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the soft snoring of multiple dogs and the distant sound of crickets. Then Marcus spoke again. "I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up. Like Dr. Nathan, but also a police officer like Officer Rodriguez, and run a rescue like Sarah. And maybe write books about dogs so people understand them better." Henry chuckled. "That's a lot of careers, buddy." "I've got time," Marcus said simply. "And Hope taught me that anything is possible if you just hold on long enough." As if hearing her name, Hope lifted her head, her tail thumping against the porch boards. She licked Marcus's hand, then settled back down with a contented sigh. 3 years passed. Marcus was 8 now, tall for his age, with his mother's dark hair and his father's steady gaze. Hope's Haven had grown into one of the largest animal rescue operations in the state, saving over 1,000 dogs. Marcus still had his gift, though it had evolved. He could no longer hear specific thoughts or see clear images from the animals. Instead, he felt their emotions, understood their needs on an intuitive level that allowed him to match the right dog with the right person, to know which training approach would work, to sense when an animal was in pain, even when they hid it well. Hope was 5 now, her puppy energy channeled into her therapy work. The slight limp from her long-ago injury had become her trademark. Children in hospitals would ask specifically for the brave dog who walks funny but never gives up. It was during one of these hospital visits that everything came full circle. Marcus and Hope were visiting a new patient, a 4-year-old girl named Lily who'd been in a car accident. She hadn't spoken since the crash that had killed her older brother. The doctors said it was psychological trauma, that she'd speak when she was ready, but weeks had passed in silence. Marcus sat on the floor beside Lily's bed, Hope immediately sensing the child's need and gently placing her head on the little girl's lap. "This is Hope," Marcus said softly. "When she was a baby, she got hurt really bad. Bad people tried to make her disappear, but she held on. She waited in a scary, dark place for 3 whole days until someone found her." Lily's eyes tracked to Hope's leg, noticing the way the dog favored it slightly. "She still hurts sometimes," Marcus continued, "but she doesn't let it stop her. She knows that surviving means you get to do important things, like making sad kids feel better." Lily's hand moved slowly, tentatively, to touch Hope's head. The dog's tail wagged gently, carefully, as if she knew sudden movement might scare the fragile child. "My brother liked dogs," Lily whispered, the first words she'd spoken in a month. Marcus felt his chest tighten, remembering his own loss, his own silence. "Tell me about him." And Lily did. Words poured out of her, about her brother James, who wanted to be a veterinarian, who rescued worms from sidewalks after rain, who read her stories about brave dogs who saved people. "He would have loved Hope," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. "He does love Hope," Marcus said gently. "Love doesn't stop when someone goes away. It just changes shape. Maybe he sent Hope to you, to remind you that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and keeping going anyway." Lily looked at him with eyes too old for her years. "Did someone you love go away too?" "My mom and dad, they died saving people in a flood." "Do you still miss them?" "Every day, but I found a way to make the missing hurt less." "How?" Marcus smiled, gesturing to Hope. "By saving others. By being the person they taught me to be. By making sure no one feels alone in their scared, dark places." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then, "Could Hope visit me again? Every week if you want. And maybe I could help, when I'm better, help save dogs like Hope. I think that would be perfect." As they left the hospital, Hope walking proudly despite her limp, Marcus felt his parents' presence strongly, not as ghosts or spirits, but as the values they'd instilled, the love they'd shown, the sacrifice they'd made. His phone buzzed. Sarah texting from Hope's Haven. "Emergency rescue. 12 puppies found in a dumpster. Need you ASAP." Marcus looked at Hope, who was already alert, sensing his shift in emotion. "Ready to save some more lives, girl?" Hope's tail wagged, her brown eyes bright with purpose. Together, they headed to the car where Henry waited, already having received the same message. "Another rescue?" his grandfather asked, though he was already starting the engine. "Another chance to make a difference," Marcus corrected. As they drove toward Hope's Haven, toward 12 puppies who needed them, Marcus thought about that night 3 years ago. The storm, the drain, the terrible moment when he thought Hope was gone. If Henry had listened to logic, if they'd stayed inside where it was safe, Hope and her brothers would have died. Luna would have died in that barn. Dozens of dogs would still be suffering. But they hadn't stayed safe. They'd ventured into the storm, into danger, into uncertainty. And in doing so, they discovered that sometimes the most important things happen when you step outside your comfort zone, when you choose compassion over comfort, when you listen to the quiet voice that says, "Someone needs help." "Grandpa," Marcus said as they pulled into Hope's Haven. "Yeah, buddy." "Thank you for believing me that night, for taking me out in the storm." Henry's eyes misted. "Thank your mom, buddy." I heard her voice clear as day, telling me to listen to you, telling me you had something special. "We all have something special," Marcus said, watching as volunteers rushed to prepare for the new rescues. "We just have to be brave enough to use it." Hope barked in agreement, and they went inside to continue their work, saving lives, healing hearts, and proving every day that love is stronger than cruelty, hope more powerful than despair, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the world. The 12 puppies were in worse shape than Hope had been. Mixed breeds, maybe 6 weeks old, covered in mange, eyes crusted shut with infection. The person who'd found them said they'd been in that dumpster for at least 2 days, their cries getting weaker until a homeless veteran named Tom had heard them while looking for cans to recycle. Tom had stayed with the puppies, using his own jacket to keep them warm while waiting for animal control. When he learned they were being taken to Hope's Haven, he'd insisted on coming too. "I know what it's like," he told Marcus, his weathered hands gentle as he held the smallest puppy. "Being thrown away. Forgotten. These little ones deserve better." Marcus studied the man, Vietnam veteran he guessed from the faded tattoo on his forearm, living on the streets for who knows how long, but his touch with the puppies was tender, experienced. "You've worked with animals before," Marcus observed. Tom's eyes lit up slightly. "Army dog handler, long time ago. Before." He trailed off, shadows crossing his face. "Would you like to help?" Marcus asked suddenly. "We need experienced hands, especially with cases this severe." Henry started to object. They didn't know this man, couldn't just invite strangers, but Marcus gave him a look that was pure Emma, that said, "Trust me." Tom's eyes filled with tears. I don't have anywhere to... I live in a tent by the river." "We have a small apartment above the kennel," Sarah said, catching on to Marcus's instinct. "For overnight staff. It's not much, but it's warm and dry. If you're willing to help with night feedings, monitoring sick animals." "You trust me? You don't even know me." Hope walked over to Tom, her tail wagging, and placed her paw on his knee. It was her signature move, the one she used at hospitals with patients who needed extra comfort. "Hope knows you," Marcus said simply. "That's enough for me." Tom broke down then, sobbing into the puppy's tiny fur. Decades of pain, loneliness, and rejection pouring out while a rescued dog and 12 dying puppies bore witness to his humanity. That's how Tom became part of Hope's Haven. His experience with military dogs proved invaluable. He had a way with the most traumatized animals, perhaps because he understood trauma himself. Within a month, he'd helped nurse all 12 puppies back to health. Within 3 months, he was running their night operations. Within 6 months, he was clean, sober, and had reconnected with a daughter he hadn't seen in 15 years. "You saved me," he told Marcus one day, "just like you saved Hope." "You saved yourself," Marcus corrected. "We just reminded you that you were worth saving." The ripples continued spreading. Lily, the little girl from the hospital, became a regular volunteer, finding her voice again through reading stories to nervous dogs. The Johnson family started a foundation in Marcus's parents' memory, funding free veterinary care for rescue animals. Dr. Nathan opened a clinic specifically for Hope's Haven animals, working at cost. Even Diesel, the former fighting dog, became an ambassador for the rescue. His adoptive family brought him to schools, teaching children about kindness and second chances. The dog who'd once killed for sport now let toddlers dress him in tutus and paint his nails, his massive head resting gently in tiny laps. But perhaps the most unexpected development came when a woman named Patricia Kellerman contacted them. "I'm Robert Kelly's sister," she said, standing nervously at Hope's Haven's entrance. "I know you have no reason to listen to me, but please." Henry's first instinct was to send her away, but Marcus stepped forward. "What do you need?" he asked simply. Patricia's story came out in rushes, how she'd tried for years to stop her brother's activities, how she'd called anonymous tips that were never investigated, how she'd been threatened, beaten, ostracized by her family for opposing them. "I have his breeding dogs," she said finally, "the ones the police didn't find. 12 females he kept at a separate property. They're not fighters, just breeding machines to him. They're pregnant, most of them. I've been feeding them, caring for them. But I need help." It was a test of everything Hope's Haven stood for. Could they help dogs connected to the man who tried to kill Hope? Could they show compassion to someone related to their tormentor? Marcus looked at Hope, who was sniffing Patricia carefully. The dog's tail began to wag slowly. "Show us," Marcus said. The conditions at the second property were heartbreaking, but not violent. The dogs had been fed, given basic care, but treated as products rather than living beings. Each pregnant female was in a separate kennel, no socialization, no comfort, no love. One dog in particular caught Marcus's attention, a German shepherd who looked remarkably like Luna, but younger. When he approached her kennel, she pressed against the bars, whimpering. "That's Luna's daughter," Patricia said quietly. "From her first litter, before Robert started the fighting. He kept her for breeding because she was perfect physically. But she's never known kindness, never been outside this kennel except to be bred." Marcus opened the kennel door slowly. The dog, they'd later name her Grace, cowered but didn't growl. He sat on the concrete floor, waiting. It took an hour, but eventually Grace crept forward, drawn by something in Marcus's stillness, his patience. When she finally placed her head in his lap, Marcus felt the familiar connection, the emotional bridge between human and animal. Grace's mind was different from Hope's, not broken by violence, but empty of experience, like a computer with no programs installed. "She doesn't know how to be a dog," he told the watching adults. "She's never played, never run, never made a choice. She's a blank slate." "Can she learn?" Patricia asked, tears streaming down her face. "Can any of them learn?" "Anyone can learn love," Marcus said firmly. "It's never too late." They took all 12 dogs. Patricia, overwhelmed with guilt about her family's actions, donated her entire inheritance to Hope's Haven and became one of their most dedicated volunteers. She had a gift for fundraising, for telling the story of redemption and second chances in ways that opened wallets and hearts. Grace became Luna's special project. The mother dog seemed to recognize her daughter despite years of separation, showing her how to play, how to interact, how to be. Watching them together, Marcus understood that healing could be generational, that saving one life could echo through bloodlines. The puppies Grace delivered, 6 healthy German shepherds, were born into a world completely different from their mothers. They knew only love, play, and gentle hands. Each one was carefully placed in homes that understood their history, their legacy, and their potential. Marcus kept one, a female with Hope's exact markings, but Grace's calmer temperament. He named her Faith. "Hope and Faith," Henry mused, watching the puppy play with Hope, who had immediately adopted the role of protective aunt. Good names for dogs that remind us what matters. By the time Marcus turned 10, Hope's Haven had become a national model for animal rescue and rehabilitation. They'd saved over 3,000 dogs, pioneered programs that paired rescue dogs with veterans, troubled youth, and elderly people in nursing homes. Marcus had testified before Congress about animal cruelty laws, his quiet voice and Hope's presence more powerful than any politician's rhetoric. But fame wasn't the goal, healing was. Every night, Marcus walked through the kennels, Hope at his side, despite her advancing age and worsening limp. He'd check on each dog, knowing their names, their stories, their progress. Some would go to new homes tomorrow. Others might stay for months, slowly learning to trust. "You started all this," he'd tell Hope. One scared puppy in a storm drain changed thousands of lives. Hope would wag her tail, her graying muzzle still beautiful to him, her brown eyes still bright with the intelligence that had first called to him through the storm. On the 5th anniversary of the rescue, the town held a celebration. The park where it had all begun was renamed Hope Park, with a statue of a German shepherd puppy at its entrance. The inscription read, "Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change the world." In memory of Emma and David Chen, who died saving others, and in honor of all those who choose compassion over comfort, Marcus spoke at the dedication, now 10 years old, but possessing a wisdom that made adults listen. 5 years ago, my grandfather and I went out in a dangerous storm because we heard someone crying for help. We found Hope and her brothers, but really, they found us. They taught us that being broken doesn't mean being worthless, that being scared doesn't mean giving up, that love can heal wounds medicine can't touch. He paused, looking at the crowd, hundreds of people, many with dogs they'd adopted from Hope's Haven. My parents died saving people they didn't even know. For a long time, I was angry about that. Why did they have to be heroes? Why couldn't they have just stayed safe? But Hope taught me the answer. We're all connected. Every life matters. Every act of kindness creates ripples we can't even imagine. He pointed to Tom, standing proud in his Hope's Haven uniform. Saving puppies saved a veteran. He pointed to Lily, now 7 and confident. A therapy dog saved a little girl's voice. He pointed to Patricia, surrounded by dogs she'd personally rescued. Forgiveness saved a family's soul. But most importantly, Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the park, Hope taught me that the worst storms in our lives, the ones that threaten to drown us, sometimes deliver exactly what we need to survive. We just have to be brave enough to reach into the darkness and pull it out. The crowd erupted in applause, but Marcus wasn't finished. Tonight, I want to make you all a promise. Hope is 8 years old now. German Shepherds usually live 10 to 13 years. Someday, we'll lose her, but her legacy, our legacy, will continue. Every dog we save, every person who finds healing through these animals, every child who learns compassion from our programs, they all carry a piece of hope forward. He knelt beside Hope, who despite her age and arthritis, sat proudly, as if she understood the importance of the moment. So I promise you, in my parents' memory and in Hope's honor, that Hope's Haven will never turn away an animal in need. Never. As long as there are storms, we'll be the ones running into them. As long as there are drains, we'll be the ones checking them. As long as there are creatures crying in the darkness, we'll be the light that finds them. The crowd was crying now, openly and without shame. Henry stood behind his grandson, his hand on Marcus's shoulder, feeling Emma and David's presence so strongly it took his breath away. As the ceremony ended and people dispersed, many stopping to pet Hope and take pictures, a young couple approached Marcus nervously. The woman was holding a cardboard box. We heard about what you do," she stammered. "We found these in a bag by the highway. We didn't know where else to go." Marcus looked in the box. 3 puppies, maybe 4 weeks old, eyes barely open. Not German Shepherds this time, some kind of hound mix. One was clearly weaker than the others, breathing shallow and rapid. Without hesitation, Marcus gently lifted the weakest puppy, feeling its tiny heartbeat against his palm. He looked at Hope, who sniffed the puppy carefully, then gave it a gentle lick. "We'll take them," Marcus said. "All of them. Always." As the couple left, crying with relief and gratitude, Henry shook his head in wonder. "You know we're at capacity. You know we can't afford more medical bills. You know that puppy might not make it." Marcus smiled, cradling the tiny life in his hands. "I know that 5 years ago, you took me out in a storm, even though it was dangerous. I know you let me crawl into a drain even though it was crazy. I know you believed me when I said I could hear Hope calling. Why?" Henry thought for a moment. "Because sometimes doing the right thing doesn't make sense. It just makes us human." "Exactly," Marcus said, already walking toward the van, Hope limping beside him, the weak puppy held carefully against his chest. "And as long as we're human, we save who we can. That's what Mom and Dad taught us. That's what Hope taught us. That's what every rescue teaches us. We can't save them all, Marcus." Marcus turned back, his young face serious but not sad. "No, we can't save them all. But we can save this one, and then the next one, and the next. And maybe, if enough people join us, if enough people choose compassion over comfort, if enough people run toward the storm instead of away from it, maybe someday we actually can save them all." Henry followed his grandson, this remarkable child who'd found purpose in pain, meaning in loss, hope in the most hopeless situation. As they loaded the new puppies into the van, Hope supervising with her usual careful attention, Henry realized the truth. They hadn't just saved Hope that night in the storm. Hope had saved them. And she was still saving others. One rescue at a time, one broken heart at a time, one act of compassion at a time. The storm that had brought so much destruction had also brought redemption. The drain that could have been a grave became a birthplace of purpose. The puppies that were meant to die had instead become the catalyst for thousands of lives changed. As they drove back to Hope's Haven, the weak puppies breathing already steadier thanks to Marcus's warmth and whispered encouragements, Henry thought about Emma and David. They would be so proud of their son. Not because he was famous or special, but because he'd learned the lesson they'd died teaching, that every life has value, that love is always worth the risk, and that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the smallest act of kindness. "What should we name them?" Henry asked, glancing at the 3 new puppies. Marcus looked at each tiny face thoughtfully. "Chance," he said, pointing to the strongest. "Courage," for the middle one. "And this one," he held up the weakest, the one still fighting for every breath. "This one is Tomorrow." Tomorrow? Because that's what rescue is really about, Grandpa. Not just saving them today, but giving them all their tomorrows. Every sunrise they wouldn't have seen, every meal they wouldn't have eaten, every hand they wouldn't have licked. We're not just saving lives, we're saving futures. Hope barked softly from her bed in the back, as if in agreement. At 8 years old, she was slowing down, her famous limp more pronounced, her muzzle more gray than brown. But her spirit remained unbroken, her purpose clear. As long as there were puppies to save, storms to weather, and hearts to heal, Hope would be there. And when her time came, as it must for all living things, her legacy would live on in every dog saved, every person healed, every child who learned compassion from her story. But that was for tomorrow to worry about. Today there were 3 new puppies who needed care, 12 dogs at the Haven waiting for dinner, and 100 more across the state who might need rescue tomorrow. Today, there was work to do. And somewhere, perhaps, Emma and David were watching, proud of the boy who'd turned the worst storm of his life into a shelter for others, who'd transformed his darkest drain into a source of light. The boy who'd learned that, sometimes, the most important thing you can do is simply refuse to leave anyone behind. The boy who'd learned that hope isn't just a name or a feeling, it's a choice. A choice to keep going when everything says stop. A choice to reach into darkness when it would be safer to stay in the light. A choice to believe that love is stronger than cruelty, that kindness can overcome evil, that even the smallest life deserves a chance. Marcus had made that choice 5 years ago, kneeling by a storm drain in the rain. He'd been making it every day since, and he'd keep making it, as long as there were cries in the storm that needed answering. Because that's what heroes do. Not because they're unafraid, but because they choose courage over comfort. Not because they're strong, but because they refuse to let weakness win. Not because they can save everyone, but because they insist on saving someone. One puppy, one person, one moment of compassion at a time, forever and always, following hope home. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more incredible tales of rescue and redemption. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever experienced a special bond with an animal that changed your life. Remember, every share helps spread awareness about animal rescue, and might just inspire someone to save a life today. Together, we can make sure no cry for help goes unanswered. Subscribe now and join our community of compassion.